Hey guys, how's everybody doing? We've got the little Jimny, the MST CFX Jimny, all finished up here. You guys saw the little time lapse of me putting it together. I gotta say it turned out pretty good. I had a friend of mine do the paint. I'm not that talented of a painter, so anywho, there she be. Get a good look. Body comes with some nice headlight buckets and some really nice scale details, mirrors and the snorkel and the little roof racks. The bumper fits really nice. I was half expected to try and get this body to sit a little lower, but it fit the bumper quite well actually. Gives you plenty of ground clearance, and the approach angle seems to be pretty nice, especially with these tiny little tires. Came with a whole bunch of decals and whatnot that actually look pretty good, but since I'm going to be giving this away or raffling it off when we're all said and done, I wanted the end user to be able to put the stickers on as they please, so I didn't go too crazy with the decals. As far as the outward appearance goes, it's pretty good. I wish there was a rock slider or something. The sides of the body are kind of flimsy. But all in all, it's a nice detailed body. Like I said, it comes with a lot of really neat little scale details. It came with front headlight buckets. It also came with some rear headlight buckets you can kind of see on the inside of the body there. Some nice clear like vinyl decals to go over the outside of it so that you can put LEDs and whatnot in there. Let's go ahead and get the body off here, and I'll kind of walk you through what I put in it for electronics and kind of go over what my thoughts were on the build and all that kind of good stuff. Just a sec here. Little tiny body clips. We'll just set this off to the side for a minute here. And I went ahead and went with just a simple brush system. Like I said, we're raffling this thing off, so I wanted it to be as ready to run as I could possibly make it. Running a little 2200 milliamp hour Gens Ace 3-cell, a 1080 Hobbywing quick run ESC. It's just a cheap Spectrum radio, and then a Savox 0231 waterproof servo there. I did go ahead and put an aluminum servo horn on it. The stock one obviously comes with some horns, but they're plastic, and I wanted it to be a little bit more durable. There's a couple other things I did to it during the build process because it was just easier to do it, and it doesn't really affect how it crawls. It just affected the overall lifespan and durability of the truck. It comes with plastic pivot balls. I don't know if you guys can see in there, but I went ahead and replaced all the pivot balls with steel pivot balls, and I went through and replaced, it comes with brass or oilite bushings in the axles. I went ahead and replaced all those with bearings. In the front it comes with these goofy, like almost like a shouldered wood screw to hold the steering knuckle on. I went ahead and used some SEX10-2 Vanquish brass kingpin bushings and their screws. What else did I do? I also used a pair of SEX10 caster hat bushings for the steering. So not a whole lot of stuff that I changed out of the box, just a little bit of durability, some things to make it easier to work on, and stuff like that. The couple of notes that I formed while putting it together is it went together really smooth. There wasn't a whole lot of inconsistencies in the instructions. The instructions were easy to follow. I did really appreciate the fact that they give you a few different spring rates to play with. I did not use the included shock oil. I ended up going with some associated 30 weight in the shocks, which seemed to dampen it just right. It's not super stiff, but it's also fluid, and it gives it the right amount of dampening. It doesn't hinder it any, and the dampening in these crawler shocks isn't as critical as, say, some of your off-road racing stuff. Some of the other things I noticed is putting it together, it's all plastic linked, but they do use grub screws, so you can literally just replace the center section of the link right here. If you can see that, you can replace just the center section of the link with an aluminum one. The plastic is actually very stiff. I was kind of surprised at how rigid the links and everything are being plastic. It's not like the old axial stuff that fold up like a pretzel if you put any pressure on them. Same with the steering link. The steering link is all plastic, but they use a grub screw in the middle, which in the instructions they tell you to just leave a space here. I happen to have some ball stud washers from an associated rig, some black ones, so I put those in there just to make it look a little better, and you didn't see the threads. Other than that, it really doesn't change the durability of it, I don't think. It is a divorced transfer case and a planetary transmission, which has got some weight to it because the plastic really doesn't. The plastic's really not holding much of it. There's a big aluminum plate that the motor bolts to, and then the whole planetary gear set bolts to that. So the plastic is actually really just covering up the planetary gearbox. It does hold some bearings in the back here, where the output shaft comes out. But actually, I'm pretty surprised with the design of the truck. It seems to be pretty well thought out. They don't give you any different options for mounting the shocks on the upper shock coops. You only get one shock location up there. You only get one shock location on the bottom. So you're kind of stuck with their interpretation of where the shock should go. Which still seems to be pretty good, and it's not super critical on these things. It's not like they're going a million miles an hour. They're slow. They're meant to crawl, you know. So that wasn't too bad. Other than that, there's not a whole lot else that I really noticed that stood out to me. It's fairly typical crawler nowadays. I mean, it's not anything out of the box other than maybe the planetary gearbox and the divorced transfer case setup, which is kind of nice because it keeps all this weight moved forward, and then they still give you a little bit of weight in the middle with the battery mounted sideways. But other than that, the bottoms of the axles are nice and smooth. They're a little bit toyish looking to me. They look kind of kiddie. But they're functional and they're smooth on the bottom, so they should slide over the rocks pretty nicely. The bottom of the skid plate is really nice and smooth. The transition between the links and the skid plate is nice. The links don't stick out past the skid too far, so you shouldn't wear through those too bad. I see the drive shaft probably twisting up pretty good if you get it in a good bind. Running brushed, you probably won't see too much of an issue, but if you do run brushless, which I think this could probably handle pretty well because the gears inside the transfer case are all metal. The gears inside the planetary gear set are all metal. Everything inside this transmission is metal. And the axles themselves are kind of interesting the way they go together. If you could pause it in just the right spot and actually look at how these went together, there's like a plastic insert that these pins slide into, and then the gear keys onto that plastic insert, and then the screws go into that plastic to hold the gear set together. Now the front and rear axles are both solid all the way through, so there's not a whole lot of play. I mean, it's one solid shaft that goes from one tire to the other, and I think actually the front I believe was two separate axle shafts. And then they use a pin. They're not keyed in. They actually use a pin that goes through the actual shaft and then slides into that plastic insert. So the axles will probably be pretty strong. You put enough horsepower to them, I could see you maybe shearing one of those pins because they weren't very big, or maybe hogging out the plastic that the pins fit into. The pins are quite long, so they're getting quite a bit of that plastic. So, and speaking of the plastic in this kit actually felt pretty solid. It doesn't feel really cheap like some of the Tamiya kits I've built and some of the other, like the G-Made stuff I've done. The plastic just feels cheap. It's shiny, it's smooth. For whatever reason, to me, the matte finish on the plastic and the texture gives it more of a premium feel. I'm not sure why that is. It's just it's the way I've thought for years. And it could be that the plastic is junk, but it feels, in the way the screws went into the plastic and everything, it felt somewhat premium. Aside from that, I like the look of the bumpers. The bumpers feel nice and solid. There's not a lot of give to them, like a lot of the other plastic bumpers. Like you pick up an SCX10 Honcho kit and the bumper just folds off of it. You can literally lift this whole kit up just by the bumper. Whereas you probably couldn't do that with an axial as far as the stock bumper goes. They give you lots of options for body mounts. They include a bunch of different length posts and whatnot. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get some running footage of this, and I'll give you my final thoughts, and we'll see how it goes from there. I'll see you guys on the flip side.